Nindantam pulakot korena bikasam nipa prasunutshtivim prodrikridva bujadvayam hari hari etutchai vedantam muhu nrityantam drutamasrunir jara chaye sinchantam urvitalam gayantam nija parasadai parivratam Sri Gaura Chandram Nama Ananda Lila Maya Vigrahaya Himavadivyascha Visundaraya Tasmai Mahaprema Rasa Pradaya Chaitanya Chandraya Namo Namaste. Jai. Yes.
Dandavad Maharaj. Today we have a question from Priyanana Didi.
Aha. Hare Krishna. Jai Sri Bhakti Ranjan Madhusudan Maharaj ki Jai.
Bhakti Sudhir Goswami
Hare
Maharaj
Krishna.
ki Jai, and our spontaneous evening program with you.
Yes. The assembled devotees.
The rain brought it on.
Yes. I was going to say that Maharaj knows very well the story and part of the glories of Srila Gurudev, his extraordinary, exceptional qualifications, and this ability to find the apt thing to say or to express in any circumstance. As we know, the opening of the ISKCON Mayapur Chandrodaya Mandir, when Srila Prabhupada invited Srila Guru Maharaj as the guest of honor, and Srila Gurudev didn't expect to speak, but Guru Maharaj was not feeling 100%, so he spoke something, but then asked, with Prabhupada Swami Maharaj's approval for Srila Govinda Maharaj to speak, and he selected that famous Kam Prati Katayitami Se slok from Raghupati Upadhyaya. So he was accustomed to speak on the appearance day of different acharyas. And they have this tradition of inviting members from different mats on the Vyas Puja of their Gurudev, but particularly the mat of Aprakrita Bhakti Saranga Goswami Maharaj. They will, he had so much regard for Srila Guru Maharaj and Srila Gurudev. So on one rainy day, they're bringing Srila Gurudev to Goswami Maharaj's mat for like Vyas Puja or some occasion. And on the way, they send some of their mat representatives to bring him in. And he says to them, like, do you know what your Guru Maharaj is going to speak about today, or what sloka you want? They go, no, who can know the mind of Sri Guru? That is, He said, but I know. And they went, no, how can you know that, And I haven't committed that sloka to memory, but I do have it here in my collection. And this is it. Jadachuta katalapa karna piyusha varjita taddinam durdinam manye megachtanam nadurdinam. Maybe I failed to mention, it was raining like this. And so Gurudev said, this is the sloka that he will quote. And it turned out to be the sloka that he quoted. And what it's saying is, normally, when people talk about, a nice day, they say, oh, the sun was shining and there wasn't a cloud in the sky, it was a nice day. Right? He said, but from a spiritual point of view, this, Achyuta Katha means Krishna-kirtan. Karna Piyusha Varjita. If the way the Vaishnavas judge is, if on a given day some Krishna-kirtan the nectar of Krishna-kirtan through your ear entered and touched your heart, that was a good day. And without that, whatever the weather might be, it was not a good day, it was a bad day. So even if it's raining like this, but we hear some Krishna-kirtan, some Hari-katha, some glorification of the Vaishnavas, then it's a good day. And it was a sort of a default position of those newly acquainted with Krishna consciousness to sing the glories of the Satya-yuga. It was just, although not explicitly stated anywhere, overtly, but devotees thought like, that would have been the time to have been born. You know, we're born in this Kali-yuga, the age of quarrel, hypocrisy, so many unspeakable acts are committed daily and on a mass scale, but the Satya-yuga, that would have been the time. You know? And when this was said to Srila Guru Maharaj, he said, not only is it not true, but the opposite is true. And everyone was like, what? And he's saying, because in Satya-yuga, it doesn't actually say everyone is Krishna conscious, but they're in the most, let's say, spiritually conscious, and going, we could say, toward Krishna conception, but their default position is one of being spiritually advanced and in a situation that's favorable for spiritual culture. But where that will end up, in a Brahman conception, a Paramatma conception, a Bhagavan conception, Narayan, etc., we know that the rarity of Krishna bhakti. And it's almost a play off of this sloka, but Guru Maharaj said, rather, when Vedavyas is telling the assembled sages the faults, the atrocities of the Kali-yuga, and said they're all like hearing these things. Imagine how shocking it is to them. Sometimes even we hear things and we're shocked to think that such things are going on in the world. But imagine these sages 5,000 years ago hearing about the atrocities of the Kali-yuga, and they're so distraught hearing this, but they notice that Vedavyas has a little smile on his face. And they're saying, like, what's wrong with, he's telling us how horrible, because what will come in the Bhagavatam? Krishna Varnam to Shah Krishnam Sangopa. No, but I'm thinking another one. Oh, Kaler Doshini De Rajan in the 11th canto. Like maybe Nemi Maharaj, they're saying, how inauspicious is the Kali-yuga? Doshini De. It's an ocean of faults. Not just a lot or a whole lot, and saying it's an ocean of things gone wrong, an ocean of inauspiciousness. But asti heko mahagunaha. But it has this one mahaguna, great quality, that cancels, and even more than cancels, all the inauspiciousness. Kirtanad eva krishnasya, mukta sangha parambhajit. That just by kirtan, Krishna-kirtan, Krishna-katha, speaking about Krishna, hearing about Krishna. And Guru Maharaj said the last line is significant in saying, it not only gives you release or liberation from all negativity, but entrance into the positive service domain. Because conventional liberation or mukti is not desirable or sought after by the Vaishnavas. Sometimes we think, well, compared to our present position, it wouldn't be bad, you know. But Rupa Goswami says, no, devotees think, what is or is it Nartam Kaivalyam Narakayate? Oh, Prabodhananda, saying it's hellish. Because remember, the devotees have so much love for Krishna. They're not trying to escape material suffering. That's what generally is propelling people in the direction of renunciation or attempts at liberation, is to escape suffering. Like the monk who came here and said, like, and his name was Ananda, but saying, like, don't try for happiness, because they're saying, in this world, you try for happiness. What is the consequence is suffering. You get this much enjoyment, and concomitantly, isn't that the word, concomitantly? Suffering. So they're saying, so if you want to avoid the suffering, avoid the search for happiness. Right? But, I was being playful, and I said, but your name is Ananda. So perhaps we can understand from that there's another type of happiness beyond the karmic conception of where most happiness is a sense of relief from suffering. Right? So muktir hit vanyata rupam svaropena vivastiti. The Bhagavatam announces that real mukti, or real liberation, is not only release from the negative aspects of existence, but getting entrance into the positive serving domain. So, and Vedavyasa is saying, and Guru Maharaj quoting, and other verses, and indicated in the Bhagavatam and elsewhere, that so desirable is a birth in the Kali-yuga that devatas are like waiting in line to get a chance to have the opportunity to be born into this age, which from a, from the stereotypical point of view would say, no, that's the most undesirable. The best one would be the Satya-yuga, where everyone is, by default, spiritually inclined. So, Piyush means nectar, Karna Piyush. And the book, one of the favorite books of Mahaprabhu by Bilva Mangal Thakur is called Krishna-kirtan. And Guru Maharaj sometimes translated it as Krishna nectar for the ear. Right. And by ear, what do we mean? I mean, what is the ear without hearing? And what is hearing without without mind, heart? That's what it means. Otherwise, the ear, in an objective sense, what is it called? The working senses, the ears, the eyes, etc. And we're told, if they're, by Sukadeva Goswami, by Srimati Radharani herself, the Queen Rukmini, if your working senses aren't directed toward, seeing the divine form of Krishna, hearing the Krishna nectar for the ear, etc., then they're not working, or what are you doing with them? This is why you have them, is for this kind of appreciation. Right? The one was Kono Rajan Indriyavan Mukunda Charanam Bujam Nabajet Sarvato Mrityur Upasha Amarotamai. Amarotamai. What's the name of that place the devotees go to? Amarvati. Right? Means like the deathless place, sometimes comparatively speaking, like Indra, Loka. But we're told the lifespan of demigods is approximately 10,000 years. So again, relatively speaking, that sounds like a long time, right? But it's not forever, right? So Amarotamai, you could say, means the best of the deathless. Because conventional immortality, but what is the name of that Greek person you looked up the other day? Anyway, you'll think of it while I'm speaking. He asked the gods for immortality, and they give him immortality, but he forgot to ask to be young. So he's just growing older and older and more decrepit and losing all sensual power, and and it ends up being a curse. Okay. Hare Krishna. Why couldn't it be something like, Zeus or Thomas. All right. To Thomas, whatever. I mean, I apologize to all the Greek scholars in the audience.
In Russian, he will sound Tifon.
Oh, okay.
You know more about him. I'll save it. It's not
Yeah.
Krishna conscious.
Yes.
I'll save it for later.
Yes. But so we understand, it was not, his immortality was not well thought out. Same with Hiranyakashipu. Same with, it's a continuing thread among Asuric culture, right? And the modern day version of that is because they think they're not so foolish as to think that they're their bodies, right? So they think they're their minds, right? So scan your mind, and I'm not making this up, right? Scan your mind, make a backup, and then download that scan into a robot made out of diamonds, right? Because as the saying goes, diamonds are forever. Right? And so they believe in this way or the new thing, the Neuralink. So you'll just, you'll be Google. That's their idea of omniscience, is that you've become Google. And various scenarios like that. But so, as I've mentioned, Srila Guru Maharaj, when I asked him about, well, I suppose before I say that, I should say this about that bodily concept of self and the extended body mind. We know Srila Prabhupada hammered this for 10 years on his audience. If you look in his books, you see all these Chaitanya Charitamritam, Srimad Bhagavatam, the full spectral range of Gaudiya ontology. But it is true, he had a tendency to hammer this point over and over again, that we're not the material body. And the extensions of that. Right? And this, someone was asking a question with regard to, we could say, patriotism and fanaticism, because they can often be mixed. So one of Srila Prabhupada's favorite slokas, they must have said like 100 times, was, yes, and it's from the Bhagavatam, Yasyatma buddhi kunape tritaduke swadid kalatra dishuboma ijadi yatirta buddhi shalile nakarhichid janeshu abhigyeshu saeva gokara. So it says, Yasyatma buddhi means if you're using your intelligence to think what? That tridatu, that means the three elements. The body's made out of kapha, pitta, vayu. If you think that is yourself, and it's giving a list, and you think, all right, that's one. To think that this body is you. Swadit kalatra dishu. Kalatra means wife, children, family, relatives, etc. Right? Extended. There's even that kind of extended family, right? And an extension of yourself. Swadit kalatra dishu. Yatirtu buddhi shalane nakarhachid. And people who think that a holy place is a particular geographic location and like the water that's there, right? And various versions of that, whether it's the Ganga, you know. And we were talking about this the other day, about who can tolerate India. And someone was saying, oh, Madhusudan Maharaj. And Madhusudan Maharaj says, I wasn't in India. I was in Navadvip. And that's the difference. So, and it's there in the sloka saying, so if you think Navadvip is India, you have the wrong idea. Right? If you understand while you're in India that you've transcended that and you're in the Dham, you're right thinking in the right direction. So it's Yatirtha Buddhi Shalane in the car. He said, oh, I forgot. Boma Ijadi. Boma means the earth, but by extension, land, the land you're born in, right? Your country. Boma Ijadi means you think it's worshipable. Now, I think it's fair to say, and it's within my experience, that everyone thinks that in every country I've ever been. And I'm not going to name all of them. But I remember being in this one, and it wasn't Russia, and it wasn't the Ukraine, okay? But it was in Eastern Europe. And I remember something came up, and where someone vented some extreme nationalism. And you know, we just moved on to something else, but I remember thinking momentarily, like, materially speaking, this place was really underdeveloped, and what's the other word? Just that would be another word. You know, and just like that, I mean, not desirable by most modern standards. And not as a criticism, it's just the way it was. You know. Yet still, I saw this extreme venting of national pride, and we could add to that. Look, America itself is what, less than 300 years old. So these countries, their name changes every so, and the boundaries are redrawn. So that even underscores the absurdity of this position. That said, it is to a certain degree natural for everyone to identify like this to a certain degree. Right? If we are to engage in spiritual culture, we have to overcome that. But it's sanskar in the sense that it's a, how do you say, mental impressions that have been acquired in karmic circumstance. So on the one hand, we can't fault someone for thinking like that. I mean, a nice version of it would be, say, like in the Olympics, when someone's going to root for the person from their country. Or when I said to from Izhevsk, Induleka, you know, I said, oh, a girl from Izhevsk won the gold medal at the Winter Olympics, you know, and it's like, you know, for people from Izhevsk, they were like, you can't say, you shouldn't be celebrating, you know, she's not really from Izhevsk, you know. I'm saying to a certain degree, it's acceptable, it's understandable. But Prabhupada's point was, if we're going to proceed on the spiritual path, then we have to stop identifying in this way as our substantial identity. It cannot be denied. It's our, in a sense, karmic identity, externally, circumstantially. Right? Whereas, but still, there's like Naga Babas. You know who the Naga Babas are? They're like, I'll tell you how you know who a Naga Baba is. I was on a train in Howard Station once and going to Navadip, and the ticket collector came on the train, you know, and he's going like, tickets, you know, and like going along. And then he came up to this one man, and I could say this, it was a Naga Baba, and although I have no prior experience in ticket collection, even I knew that he didn't have a ticket. Right. Which means he's totally naked. They don't even wear copines. So they ride free. I mean, they figure like, you didn't just do this to get a free train ride, you know. You know, but so I remember on the way to Badrinath, and sometimes on the path, footpath, we'd encounter some Baba or something, and so one such person was there, and my partner on the journey, he was a good cook, he made something, and so we're sharing with him, and I remember, because we carried a little bit of ghee and a little bit of like garam masala, so it was very tasteful, and you know, you're walking 20 kilometers a day, and so I remember the Baba, when he took this, he went, beautiful, you know. But at one point he said to him, like, what's your name? You know, Tyagi Baba. And what he means is, he doesn't have a name. That's why Tyagi Baba, you know. Say, where are you from? They're not from anywhere. They're told to renounce names, where you're from, you're no longer from there, you're never really from, you know, to erase, delete all your files of your material life and your past. Which we could say from one point of view, it seems like, well, not a bad idea if you're trying to proceed, you know, seriously, spiritually. But it's not practical either. And it's not the way of the Vaishnavas, according to Rupa Goswami. Nirbandha Krishna Sambandha Yukta Vairagram Yuchate. He's saying, but we don't fear the mundane as long as it's being used in the service of Krishna. So, but we're not identifying with that substantially as our identity. So, Boma Ijidi, about the land being, you know, worshipable. Right. So, what Guru Maharaj said he used as a weapon in his preaching, because he was once in the Gandhi movement, and when he came out of that, and joined Gaudiya Math, he found now he had to preach to the same people, and he said his weapon was what he called extended selfishness. So I think we can understand that term comes from Srila Guru Maharaj, extended selfishness. Kalatra Dishu Boma Ijadi. So myself, I'm from this country, that's my wife, that's my family, I went to this school, all these things, ahang mameti. Another line Prabhupada liked very much. I and mine. Janasya mohoyam ahang mameti. So, Srila Guru Maharaj is saying only when you identify with the infinite can you we could say, then you have something to be, to use the word, fanatical about. Then it's tolerable. Otherwise, it's a type of mania, right? Delusion, right? Because why should you be considered that you were born in a particular place that has imposed an identity upon you? And it reminds me of two things, and you can help me remember one of them. But one is, so I remember being, and I was in Hungary, which was not the country I was referring to before. This is another. And this one girl who was our translator, she was becoming more and more Krishna conscious, and that was kind of the program, because she was translating all day and all night. After around a week, she was a devotee. So, but her mother was upset, and I had to meet with the mother, and long story short, her mother, who was a Christian, said she just couldn't wrap her head around that God was a cowherd. So I said to her, but he could be a sheep herder, right? The Lord is my shepherd, I shall, I said, that you're okay with. But that he's a cowherd sounds absurd. But the other thing I wanted to say was Guru Maharaj speaking about karmic circumstances. And this is the needle that must be threaded. And he gives the example in Vedic culture of the husband and wife. And let's just say, on account of their marriage, the husband has certain demands that have to be met. Right? And but we're told, if she has a paramour, that she's attentive, maybe even more attentive to the demands of the husband and her circumstance, while in her heart is wholly given over to the paramour. So Guru Maharaj used this to talk about karma and karmic circumstances. They have some demand over us. After all, we've generated them. We're the cause of, nothing's being forced upon anyone in a karmic sense unfairly. Right? For every action, there's an equal and opposite reaction. Saying, but a devotee, someone engaged in substantial theistic culture, he said, they'll give some feigned attention to that, while in their heart is given over to Krishna conception. Right? And generally speaking, all of these movements they will often talk about freedom, right? And achieving freedom, and freedom fighters, and the people who fought to make some group free, and it all sounds very good and noble. Yeah. But Guru Maharaj poses this all-important question. Right? Is it a culture to gain freedom for the senses or freedom from the senses? He's saying the real fight, the real struggle is internal. Right? It's not external. Right? External freedom, for self-determination, that's all fine. But without the internal struggle for freedom from the senses, then external freedom, it's actually a misnomer. Right? We're given the Upanishadic verse about the soul being on a chariot, the body, and the senses are compared to 5 wild horses that are going in various directions. They're pulling on it. So, But what was the question?
I haven't asked any.
Well, you were about to.
I was about to
yeah.
ask the question from Priyanana Didi. So her question is, who is a gentleman in Krishna consciousness in all senses?
Madhusudan Maharaj.
Should we all acquire such nature to be allowed to the higher
Should the
plane?
ladies become gentlemen?
To be allowed to the higher plane. We hear expressions such as, quote unquote, this world is not a proper place for a gentleman, or, quote unquote, Radharani's suggestion. What's Guru's position towards the disciple? Is it also gentle? Is Guru waiting for some consciousness to be awakened in his disciple, or he can also push and insist?
Could be waiting for a long time. Guru Maharaj would quote this verse. It says that as rare as it is to find Satguru, or a proper guru in this world, it's equally, if not rarer, to find a qualified disciple. As we were telling, Guru Maharaj speaking about Prabhupada, Swami Maharaj saying, he wholly emptied himself of any other desire than the order of his Guru Maharaj. So if we honestly, candidly analyze ourselves, we know we're far from that, but we understand that is the standard, and that, as we were told the other day on Jiva Goswami's appearance, the principal anga of Sharanagati surrender is to accept Krishna as one's protector. Right? So, and that protection, or asraya, the shelter-giving personality, is Guru. And it's Krishna. It says, Sarvadharmam parichaja mamekam sharanam braja. So give up all other considerations and just surrender to me. And if we're hesitating to do that on the basis of impending reactions to acting irresponsibly, right? If we think that, he's saying, ahang tang sarva papevyo. If there is, in fact, any sin to be incurred from that, I'll, digest, absorb that. And you say, well, and to believe in that is faith. Right? So, an aspiring servitor, what does the verse say? Diksha kale bhakta kori atma samarpan. One way of reading this is to say, at the time of Diksha, one offers oneself, atma samarpan, to Guru. Remember that girl in Calcutta, maybe Mamta, or like her parents didn't want her to take Diksha, like there's Harinam and then Diksha. And they said, their reasoning was, and it shows like Bengali culture, and that they're saying because if she takes Diksha, she becomes the property of Guru. And then they thought, what will that mean for her life? And, so, but it's peculiar in that it shows to the degree that they understand that this is something very serious. And what they're saying is not untrue. They're saying, then you become the property of Guru. They understand that. And like Shukracharya, they're saying, don't do that. Remain our property. Don't become the property of Guru and Krishna. We're your parents. That's right. They like the Tulsi Ramayan, the Yeah, that's the one, right? Yeah. All right. Because you'll overhear Indians telling their children, because there, he says, parents are God. So they like this book very much. Telling clearly, parents are God. So, becoming the property of Guru, when it says Goptritve Bharan, so it's from Jiva Goswami, and Rupa Goswami quotes Jiva Goswami in Bhakti Rasamrita Sindhu saying, and what does it mean? He says, like a sold animal. Right? And then I thought of when Srila Gurudev accepted the acharjaship of Sri Chaitanya Saraswat Mat, after trying to defer to others and considering himself unfit, unqualified, and Gurudev's humility, but at last he consented, and you can hear, he says that I present myself to Guru Maharaj like I'm his goat. And if it pleases him to even whimsical, to cut off my tail because he would just like it better that way, then I'm okay with that. And then we know there's cutting that takes place at the other end, especially if you're a goat in Bengal. Right? He's just saying, that's his decision. And I thought, oh, this is what Jiva Goswami was talking about. When you're the property of Guru, and you might say, the Western sanskar in us trembles, is nervous, shivering, to even contemplate such a thing, because we're so suspicious of divinity. Right? And that's the last sort of cheating. We think, well, no, but I have good cause because I've been cheated so many times in this world. And you yourself say this world is the cheaters and the cheated. So I have to be extra careful. But then I thought, yes, so after acknowledging that you've been cheated repeatedly, time and time again, then you come along at last before the only person who will not cheat you, and you say, not this time. Then that's the ultimate. Now you've cheated yourself. Right? And as we say, hridayena binugato yodarmasta nibodhata. The ultimate factor is heart. And you say, well, my heart appears to have been wrong at different times. So how do I know that this is correct? And Guru Maharaj said, with all your earnestness, as sincerely as possible, pray to let this not be another example of that. Right? Because he will say, Nahi kalyana krit kaschid durgatim tatagachyati. If I do not cheat me, then no one can cheat me. So it's not casting blame upon others or the environment or I was deceived or anything like that. And he said, if I do not deceive me, then no one can deceive me. So Atma Samiksha, we have to examine ourselves. And that said, in response to this, there are no shortcuts to devotional qualifications. Right? You cannot self-certify or decide that I will culture these things. Starting Monday, I'm going to be humble. But I still got the weekend. Right? What is humility? The perceived proximity of greatness, not posturing in a particular way. Right? We know an actor can act humble. One of the famous maxims of Hollywood, said with great sarcasm, was someone said, once you can fake sincerity, everything else is easy. Right? And in one sense, that's what acting is. It's faking sincerity, whatever the emotions are or the situation. You're faking as if it were real. Right? So humility means the perception of the proximity of greatness, meaning of something greater than ourselves. That's generic humility. And if we're perceiving the proximity of something that is infinitely greater than ourselves, that's spiritual humility. And Guru Maharaj gave examples. He said, like when you stand on the shore of an ocean, and you look, out to the horizon, and the waves seem to go on endlessly in every direction. He said, automatically you feel small and insignificant. Or you look at the sky when it's clear, and you see all these stars and planets, right? Or even the images from the Hubble telescope, right? And it's just, when you realize what you're looking at, right? If we can say the objective world, 1 trillion stars, and then you think the one tiny blue planet, the Earth, and then on one little part of that Earth, I'm there, then automatically, being overwhelmed by that, you feel insignificant. So, we see in the culture of Vaishnavism that the depth of negativity expressed is in direct, what's the word, parallel or to the heights of their devotional achievement. So by appreciating how beautiful, wonderful, great is Krishna, automatically they feel themselves insignificant, right? Like there's a verse, there's a yamartililo payakam swayoga mayabalam darshayata grihitam vishmapanam swasya chasobagarde param padam bhushana bhushanangam. It's a verse saying bhushana bhushanangam means the ornament's ornament, talking about the beauty of Krishna. Right? And we know in this world, when they want to market some clothing, particularly ladies' fashion, what do? They put the clothes on like a super beautiful girl. And so when people look at that, they think like, oh, I want to get one of those. Buy that dress or whatever it is. But it's the girl who, I'm not saying that it's not nicely done or whatever, but really it's the girl who makes the clothing look so enchanting. So what this verse is saying, it's Krishna who makes everything else look extraordinarily beautiful. And what's mentioned there when it says, Vishmapanam swasya chasobagarde, that including Narayan of Vaikuntha, right? That he's overwhelmed by how beautiful Krishna is. And then if we want to go a step further, we find out, and from the works of Rupa Goswami, that Krishna, seeing his reflection either in a jeweled column or a mirror or something, he is astonished at his own beauty, and says in one place, like when it takes him by surprise, he's saying, who is this person who suddenly the feelings of Radharani are awakening in me. Right? So why did I say that? What was before?
We were talking about Guru, if he's waiting for...
No, but there was a reason that I mentioned this. Oh, about the depth of negativity and what they express.
And perception of...
Yes. Yeah, so, well, I'm just saying, so here you have even Narayan of Vaikuntha being overwhelmed by appreciating the beauty of Krishna. Right? But when we hear the great devotees speak, like Kaviraj Goswami comes to mind, Jagai madhai hoite muise papista, purishera kita hoite muise lagista. I mean, it's painful to hear this exalted soul say, I'm more sinful than Jagai and Madhai, I'm lower. We can't even say it, right? We just say, lower than the lowest, right? But, and I once said to Guru Maharaj, that I said, if Kaviraj Goswami, I understand he's saying this and we understand a particular context. And I said, but what if you actually are more sinful than Jagai and Madhai? And Guru Maharaj said, oh, such sentiments have descended in you. And that was one thing he said. The other thing he said was, these are sincere expressions from him. Really, he feels like that. I'm going to say, look, well, how can he feel like that? This depth of negativity that is expressed implies how wonderful, high, deep is his Krishna conception, or his conception about Mahaprabhu. And that's what causes him to vent such negativity, which Guru Maharaj equates with humility. And then what is the outcome of that? So when it's genuine negativity, genuine humility, then it attracts the positive Krishna. So how do these qualities come? When there's genuine negativity, genuine humility, which means appreciation for what is superior to us. We're told, sadhu sangha satovare. We always improve by getting the association of superior devotees. That's the system. But we could say, and that association becomes most meaningful through service. So by serving them, the outcome will be the sort of devotion that is in the heart of that Vaishnava will be transferred to the heart of the servitor. That's the idea. Not that we're on some independent program to culture good qualities, humility, or the other things mentioned, but through association. Right? Like one example probably was iron rod and fire. Right? So we're like iron. And again, that depth of negativity, saying, Guru Maharaj said, silver may not feel so much necessity to become gold. Right? Saying, well, being silver is okay. So, but, wrought iron, you can make a stronger case there. So if we realize how unqualified we are, then we, put the iron rod in the fire, take the unqualified and immerse them in the service of the qualified, then the qualifications are transferred to the servitor. But Guru Maharaj is telling us that an actual substantial devotee will never think that they've achieved anartha nivritti, that they're now free from misconception, bad qualities. We see that Rupa Goswami and Sanatana Goswami, when they meet Mahaprabhu, the sort of things they say about themselves that they expressed. Again, this depth of negativity. And it's thematically consistent with all the great, Haridas Thakur. The other day we're hearing of his glories. Right? Kaviraj Goswami, Haridas Thakur, Rupa Goswami, Sanatana Goswami. They're always acknowledging from their point of view what are defects or lack of qualification. But we could say that is their qualification. And that's sort of the depth of that negativity attracts the supreme positive. So then something extraordinary comes out. And I've told, when I was in, Novosibirsk? Yeah. And it was like December, January, and everything was white outside the window. Like the ground was white, the trees were white, the sky was white. Yeah. And I thought it's like Sweta Dweep, or how I could imagine, because you wonder. And hearing Guru Maharaj talk about negativity and equating that with humility. And I had just heard about superconductors, that certain ceramics, when you freeze them to, say, absolute zero, or as close to it as possible, which is like minus 350, all right, Celsius, Fahrenheit, they achieve this state of superconductivity. So then I thought about, what does it mean? Normally, when there's resistance to current, like the wires that we have, they're wrapped, sometimes they're copper, other things, but they're wrapped in some insulation or rubber, whatever it is. So, and if you put too much power through them, and the resistance is shed in the form of heat, right? And then they melt or they catch fire. Right? But the superconductors, they have zero resistance. And so they can float or do all kinds of seemingly mystical things. So the parallel being, when we're talking about the depths of negativity or humility, means that there's zero, you mentioned, Radharani's suggestion, the order of Guru, however you want to, when there's zero resistance to that, like Guru Maharaj said about Swami Maharaj Prabhupada, wholly emptied himself of any other desire than the order of Srila Saraswati Thakur, and divine power had to come down and work on his behalf. That's Avesh, Shaktavesh. Talk about current. So zero resistance to the order, to the suggestion. We're normally hesitant, as we mentioned before. There's hesitation on our part, or what Prabhupada in one place called causeless unwillingness. Right? But in this instance, where there's zero resistance to the current, then such a devotee with such depth of humility, it's not low self-esteem, right? But they achieve a state of superconductivity. So the Charitamritam is passing through Kaviraj Goswami, Veda Vyas, the Bhagavatam, and so many scriptures, Srila Prabhupada, the worldwide inundation of Krishna consciousness. So he's not praying for that position, but on account of the depth of his surrender, he's become qualified for that, the descent of that level of empowerment. Right? Krishna Shakti Bina Nahe Tara Pravartan from Antya Lila. He likes to quote that a lot. Krishna Shakti Bina. Without Krishna Shakti, it's not possible. That's the ultimate empowerment. And to draw Krishna's glance, his interest, his affection, this depth of negativity in the heart of the devotee. Hare Krishna.